Hey, this is Asha. Thanks for joining me in today's video. And what I want to share with you today is really why so many high income individuals are still broke and how you can kind of avoid this problem yourself, especially if you're a high income individual. So stay tuned. I'm going to go ahead and share with you some insight in this video. All right, so you might be wondering, why is it that someone making $100,000 a year, $500,000 a year, maybe $20 million a year is still broke or can be broke once their time has run up? And this happens to a lot of people. Don't be too surprised saying, hey, well, if I'm making $20 million a year, I'm not going to go broke. I wouldn't, I'd go ahead and put some money away. And if that's the case, good for you. But remember, just like any individual, you have kind of three main choices that you could do with your money, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But when you look at this, a third of Americans really have more credit card debt than savings. Here's 2019. This is from Statista. You can see about a third have more credit card debt than savings, and this is a huge problem. So let's go to the glass board here, but before we do, go ahead and check out our website at MyLittleNestEgg.com, and you can check out some of their great freebies and getting started page that I have that'll help you evolve your personal finances, income, and much more. All right, so if we take a look at actual high income earners, I've got a couple of interesting statistics for you here. Really, we're going to go with a couple of statistics. I've got something from Sports Illustrated for you. I've got another thing from the NFL and something from the National Endowment Financial Education. So we're going to go into these in just a second. But just like any individual, what you can do, there's really three main things that you can do with your money once you go ahead and get it. So this happens to be whether you're a billionaire, a millionaire, or just have $1,000 in your bank account. So what you could do is you could go ahead and I could spend it. I could go ahead and save it. And I could go ahead and invest it. So these are the three main things. So the question is are you saving it, are you investing it, or spending it? And two out of those three things actually go ahead and in a way lose money for you. When you look at spending it, this is a loss, and saving it is a loss. Why is saving it a loss? You might be thinking, well, I'm going to go ahead and lose money if I save it. Well, because of inflation. Naturally, things go ahead and appreciate and inflate in price. This is called inflation in economics terms. In a way, if you put $1,000 under your mattress, 10 years later down the road, you can't buy as much with that $1,000. Money devalues with time. So in other words, investing it is a good approach to continue to keep up with inflation. So really, you could do three main things, and two of those are losing things. One of those is actually making you money. So what happens is that most individuals, they go ahead and just spend more or just save without a return on their savings. They go ahead and spend more than they have. So if you're making, let's say, $100,000 a year, and this is your salary, well, what people do is they might spend, let's say, $95,000. And then on top of that, they have additional expenses that maybe creep up or unexpected expenses. And now all of a sudden, the amount that you could save or invest is very small and limited. So that's really the problem. If you're making, let's say, $5 million a year, well, if you're spending, let's say, $12 million, because this is what happens when you're able to take out loans and bigger loans because now you have more capital and more money, they'll go ahead and extend you even further, right? If you're making, let's say, $100,000, well, you might be able to get a loan for, let's just say, $900,000, okay? If you're making $5 million, well, they might go ahead and be able to, hey, use your contract, use your brand deals, whatever the case is, to go ahead and extend you $20 million of credit, because then they kind of own you, or $50 million of credit. That starts to get into really ramping up territory to the point where, hey, you could go ahead and use some serious leverage, but keep in mind, you're using leverage, which means you're in a way spending it. You're taking out debt to finance things. And this is why so many, let's see, we've got NBA stars. So here's a little stat from Sports Illustrated that NBA stars, about 60% of them are broke after retirement within just a few years. Okay, so there's one interesting factor. Here's one from the NFL that most NFL players, about 78% of them, are bankrupt. Okay, so you got bankrupt problems within a few years due to job or divorce. So you can see how that could be a huge issue. And then another one from here, the National Endowment Financial Education, that they say anybody who goes ahead and just gets a large sum of money, about 70% of those, like lottery tickets and so on, people become broke within just a few years. So think of this thought process. NBA stars, NFL stars broke 60%, 78% in just a few years. So here's a quick little articles for you that you can just go ahead and do some of your own research. 5 broke or retired NBA players, and you can just go ahead and scroll through them. And really the point is not to pinpoint people out or just, say, hey, oh, this person's broke or not broke. And they probably can get more contract deals and use other capital and collateral that they may have. But the problem is if you look at the backstory behind these things, a lot of it is that they've spent more than they've earned, or they've took out leverage, or it's just because you're an NBA star doesn't mean you know how to manage your money properly. You know how to work and play the basketball, and you're a high income earner, but you still might be spending more than what you're making. So here's one with Sean Kemp. Let's see, Kemp made a lot of money during his career, which is about $90 million in salary. That's a ton of money, and about $11 million from endorsements. But during the fathered 7 children by 6 different women, the child support plus high drug-related issues made an end to his wealth. So you can see there's some personal problems. Here's Scottie Pippen, seen one of the most financially irresponsible NBA players, made a lot of stupid financial decisions that did not turn out well for him. Let's see, he bought a $4 million jet, but it didn't even work. So you can see that, there's a lot of spent problems. People just go into debt. Here's NFL players who went broke after they retired. Pro athlete's career, Warren Sapp. So here, let's see, 5 years, he couldn't pay his $6.7 million in debt, even though he was still earning $115,000 every month as an analyst for the NFL network. So he ran into trouble with the law, and the NFL network fired him. So anyways, and his ex-wife, she claims that he still owes her $3 million. So again, you can see there's a little bit of problem. Vince Young signed a $25.7 million 5-year deal, but generous payouts and bumpy career led to the 30-year-old player file for bankruptcy. So there's a lot of problems that happen, and my point is not to single-handedly point out these players or people. It's just that their careers are more public, so it's in the public eye. But the point being is that, hey, if you go ahead and make a certain amount and you're just spending more than you're making, you're extending yourself, then that becomes an issue and problem, and you will get into trouble. You will get into debt and financial problems. That's just the law of money. That's just math. If you made $100 and you're spending $120, you're in the negative. And really the big issue here is that it's not so much earning so much and then spending it, but what happens is your earnings with time typically increases. So let's say you're starting your earnings capacity at $50,000 and you might go ahead and spend $30,000. Okay. Now what happens is okay, you've kind of netting about $20,000 for savings or investing. But then what goes on is that let's say you get a salary bump, or you're starting to make now $75,000 per year. And now what people do is they ramp up their lifestyle. Hey, I'm making more money. Now I could buy a nicer car. I could go ahead and buy a nicer house. I could go ahead and buy extra gadgets, toys. They get into something that they start blowing their money because it's a lot easier to spend than to invest or to save money. So what they do is they ramp up their spending. So now you're going and boom, you're blowing $50,000. And now you might be, hey, making or saving 25, but relative percentage-wise, it's not that much more. So this is what happens with people, and that continues. That cycle continues. You make $100,000, and now you might be blowing $80,000 because your income improved. So you want to go ahead and improve your lifestyle, but there's not a lot that's pocketing in your savings or your investments. And this is what people really miss out on, is when they start looking at this, they try to carry the lifestyle with their earnings, and all of a sudden this earnings goes down, and it goes down to $50,000. And now the issue is you don't want to go back to this lifestyle. You've grown accustomed to, your habits are still at the $100,000 lifestyle, where now you're spending 80, instead of 30, and now you're down money. And that's the problem. That's really the issue that happens, is that people go ahead and they still keep that same lifestyle from here when their salary and income drops, and they think that, hey, things will be okay. No, you got to adjust that lifestyle quick, or prepare for this to happen. If you already can prepare and know and expect, it's kind of like, hey, I expect it. It's going to happen. Expect this to happen. If you expect this and prepare for this to happen, then you'll be better off, because it's like, hey, if I still would have spent, let's say, 30,000 here, now you're pocketing 70 each time, and after 5 or 6 years, hey, you got a lot in the bank that when you go back into here, you're still good, because you're still making 50, you're still there, and you're still pocketing 20, and you've saved a bunch of money over here on this side. So that's the interesting and fantastic part, is if you expect that to happen anyway in the future, you'll be way better off. So that's my point, and the thing I want to share with you is that just because you have a high income, or you're earning a lot, or somebody else is earning a lot, don't think that all of a sudden they're really rich or really wealthy, and don't let it get yourself sucked into it that now if you're making a little bit more, you got to go ahead and buy a fancier car, you got to impress somebody else. The point is look at what's your bottom line, how much money is there, and expect this to happen, this drop to happen, because eventually, if you're out of work, you break your leg, whatever the case is, you might have or need that extra little bit of cushion. All right, so thank you so much for joining me in this video. Hope you found it helpful, insightful to understand a little bit more about the lifestyle. There's really only 3 things that you can do with your money as you earn it. You can spend it, you can save it, you can invest it. And the question is, when things go sour and bad, are you gonna have a cushion? Watch out for your lifestyle, that if your lifestyle creeps up and you're just spending almost the same amount that you're making, if things do change and you're not a high income earner anymore, that's going to be a problem. So in either case, for those of you guys that are saving quite a lot and investing much more, fantastic, more power to you, and great job. Anyways, thanks for joining me in this week's video. Go ahead and check out some of the freebies that I have on my website, subscribe to the channel, or check other great videos out right there. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next video.